of Hispanic American Freethinkers, which is also known as HAFree, H-A-F-R-E-E. You can see that on the screen. David started organizing and planning his outreach to the Latino population in early 2010, utilizing the internet tool Meetup. By 2011, HAFree became a 501c3 educational organization. And HAFree is the first and only national Latino not-for-profit 501c3 educational organization. And David is going to tell you more about his organization in just a minute, but my job right now is to highlight David. David was born in South America and was raised Catholic. He was an extremely devout youth and seriously considered becoming a priest. But at about age 40, he realized that he was an atheist, and we are sure glad that he made that realization. David holds a Bachelor of Science degree in computer science from George Washington University and a master's degree in information technology management from the University of Virginia. He has served as director of the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce in Northern Virginia, board director of Argonex Properties, director of the Ben Franklin and Kemper Maccoon Ware Masonic Lodges, and board director of Cascades Homeowners Association. He is a founding member of Camp Quest. He also serves on the board, Camp Quest Chesapeake, in the Washington, D.C. area. David is currently one of the hosts of the HAFree Spanish language podcast, and he often speaks to Hispanic high schools in the students there in Northern Virginia about critical thinking and about their future. Now, just this year alone, David has been an invited guest at annual conferences of non-theist organizations. American Atheist hosted him, American Humanist Association, and the Secular Student Association, and now we are honored to have him in Philadelphia. In December 2012, David spoke at the Chester County Commissioners meeting and advocated for the placement of the Free Thought Society's Tree of Knowledge in Westchester, and he did a fabulous job. In March 2013, he staffed a HAFree table at Drexel University. He is a friend to all, and if I could just pick two words to describe David, they would be secular educator. Please welcome my friend and fellow Freemason, David Tamayo.
And that concludes my presentation. Well, I'm a bit nervous because there are a lot of heroes of mine here in this room today. And so spare me if I make some mistakes. I did wear a tie today in honor of those folks, and a jacket. Also, it's a good place to put swag and pins and things like that. So, but I'll get started since time is very short. First, I'm going to be talking about US Hispanics. And most of us think of US Hispanics are people that recently came, people that the Republicans want to kick out of the country or self-deport, depending on what state you're from. But so I figured I'll give you a little quick review. So the next couple of slides may be slightly familiar to some of you, but I'll try to go through them quickly. The term Hispanic or Latino, we could talk about an hour about this. It doesn't matter. Either one is fine, so don't worry about it if you're trying to reach out to the Latinos or to the Hispanics. So Latinos are not a race. I think most of you know that. They come in every color, shape, form, different tastes, everything. And so it's just an ethnicity. It's a self-declared ethnicity. Now, some people don't know this, but Native Americans from all the Americas have the same DNA as the Native Americans of the United States. And in fact, those two children you see on your right, one of them would have to check, Latin American or Hispanic, and the other one would check Native American. But by looking at them, you wouldn't know. So a lot of the people that you see in the street or something could be Native American as well, just because of the DNA makeup. Just wanted to point that out. Now, Latinos have lived in the United States from the early 1500s. A lot of people don't know that either. They were here before the English arrived. So they were the natives, and they were the Hispanics. And in 1775, in fact, before we were a country, Spanish ships arrived in Alaska. And by 1783, Spain had claimed more than half of what today is the United States. So Hispanics have been around for a few days, and so it's important to let people know that there's been continuous presence here for a very long time. And another little statistic is that three out of the four most populous states today in the United States came from Mexico or Spain, and those are Florida, Texas, and California. Those are the states that have the most people in the country, and they came from Latino background. And just another fact that a lot of people don't know, sorry, this is way below, the US has more Spanish-speaking people than any other country in the world except for Mexico. So that's something else that a lot of people don't know, and we need to keep in mind. So what exactly are we talking about? Well, we're talking about that there are 53 million Hispanics in the United States. That's a big chunk of people, and a lot of people argue that Obama couldn't have won with the Latino vote. We know that he couldn't have won without the minority, women, and Latino vote for sure. So that's something that a lot of groups are starting to, including the Republicans, are starting to say, well, maybe we need to start paying attention to the Hispanics. So what does that mean? That means that 16.7% of the US population is Hispanic, and that means that 1 in 6 people today are Hispanic. But look at the children, 1 in 4 kids is Hispanic. So what does that mean? That means that by the year 2060, according to the US Census, 1 in 3 Americans are going to have Hispanic background, Hispanic heritage. Something that we shouldn't ignore, I suppose, especially in our movement. Now, just for my own curiosity, how many here consider themselves Hispanic? Okay. So I want you to notice at the numbers, okay, because it's one of those things that caught my attention at some point also. Okay, and just to put things in perspective, African Americans are 12% of the population versus 16% of the population. All right, so I'm going to tell you a story today about 1 in a million or 1 in 53 million, and it's a real story. The story is of Juan, who was born in Niquia. It's a small South American neighborhood that was created by a factory to provide housing for their employees, their factory workers. And it was sort of typical for the time. It had a dirt street where kids played. It had well water, and it had a church about every couple of blocks. And after Juan was born, he was baptized 7 minutes after he was born. I mean, as soon as they could get a priest, because, well, you might end up in limbo. And that's the Latin word for limbo, which is, we're all born with original sin, and, if a baby dies without baptism, that takes away that original sin. Well, who knows what will happen in limbo. And he was the oldest of 5 kids, and his father finished the 3rd grade, so he barely knew how to read and write, and his mother graduated from high school, and all 5 kids was born by the time mom was 23. And the church said, have more, because you got to get whatever God sends you. So, Juanito el Preguntón, what that means is that between the ages 4 and 7, Juan was asking a lot of questions. And so Juanito Preguntón means Johnny the questioner. He's always asking questions and asking questions. And most of you that have children know that anywhere between age 2 and 7, kids would ask why, until you finally said, because I say so. And I hated that answer, but when my dad used to say it. Anyway, so he would ask things like, if God is stronger than the devil, why doesn't God just kill the devil and get it over with and we'll all go to heaven? I mean, it seemed fairly obvious to a 5-year-old or a 6-year-old. And, or he would ask, why does God need the Pope? Why can't he just talk to each one of us individually and cut out the hierarchy of priests and so forth? Or if Jesus is God, why did he pray to himself? A little narcissistic, even for a child to realize that. And of course, the answers typically ranged in the realm of God will reveal these divine things to you when you die and go to heaven. For now, just be quiet, don't ask, don't think, don't worry about it. In other words, stop thinking. And sorry to say that happens a lot in religion, in religious life. This is something that gets the kids to stop asking the questions. And later on, they say, well, there are two magisteria. One is for religion and one is for the rest of the world. So for the rest of the world, question everything, but not for religion. So Juan was enrolled in Catholic school, which was not free, but the textile factory where his father worked paid for everything. So he continued having nice religious indoctrination. And life revolved around church. He becomes an altar boy at age 10. By the way, those are real pictures. That's the school, Nuestra Señora de Chiquinquirá. Easy for me to say, right? Altar boys, the nuns that were in the school. And, keep in mind that we don't choose where we're born. And so, this was the life that he had. And then we come to major points of inflection. And this is the first thing that I want you to start thinking about. The point of inflection I consider are those things that happen in our lives that change the whole course of our lives. And these things happen by luck. They happen by, we're there to what luck means. So it happens by coincidence, it happens by probability, and so forth. And so for Juan, the interesting thing is that he got to go, his father moved to the United States, and he was offered a job. El gringo went knocking on the door, literally, and said, we want you to go to the United States. And the father came to just see how things were and liked the United States. And within a few months, the whole family was in the United States. And they all moved to the smallest little state of the Union, as they used to call it, Rhode Island. More specifically, they moved to Central Falls, Rhode Island. And this is true. At that time, it had the most churches and the most bars per square mile of any city in the United States. I don't know if there was a relationship there, but it certainly made it for a fun city. And 46% of the people there were recent immigrants because of the factories that were there. So those factories attracted those immigrants, and Juan's family was just that type of people. And it was, in case some of you don't know, Rhode Island was the first state to have freedom of religion with Roger Williams and Ann Hitchens, I think it was his name. So for Juan, this was a new culture, a new language, and for the first time, he was able to get second helpings when he got up. So food was abundant. Really interesting, like I said, just major inflection point in life. So there's another saying in Spanish that says, "En el país de los ciegos el tuerto es rey," which means in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king. And so basically, Juan realizes that Rhode Island is actually very Catholic, and he can continue becoming more Catholic. He did find out that there were these other religions that did exist, but obviously they were wrong. I mean, without even thinking much about it, obviously he was very lucky to have been born in the right religion. And Juan considers becoming a priest, but no girls, come on. The course, by the way, the course that he took was with the Knights of Columbus. So that's what you see up below is the Knights of Columbus, which is an institution, an offshoot of the Catholic Church, and sort of in response to the Freemasons. And so Juan started actually doing really good. You know, he became the second best student in high school. And unfortunately, it was the worst high school in the whole nation. A few years later, all the teachers were fired, the principal, I think even the guy that cleaned the floors was fired, everybody. So, you know, being you know, so good in such a small pond, it just didn't go. So, let me mention the last 4 major points of inflection in Juan's life. So Juan was recommended to a program called Upward Bound. Do any of you here know what Upward Bound program is? Excellent. It's the best program there is. I wish it was bigger than that. So some of the notable alumni include Oprah Winfrey, which some of you may know, John Quinones, Angela Bassett, and Juan's friend and classmate, movie star Viola Davis. Some of you may know who she is. And so, well, before I go on, if you haven't figured this out, this is my story, of course. And I'll get to the part why you know, or when did David come about. But the fact is that Upward Bound saved my life. It's probably, you know, a major inflection point for me because it allowed me to take classes on weekends and during the summer. And because my high school sucked, the big one, I was able to get, yeah, I know, how do you really feel about it? Actually, I love the high school. I spoke at the high school last year as for their graduation. But Upward Bound gave me the knowledge that I needed, the classes and everything. I was eager to learn. I really wanted to learn. And so I got accepted to 7 universities. But, of course, my parents said, well, sorry, there's no money. We don't have any money for you. To top it all, my dad was very sick and lost his job, and my mom was working in a factory, you know, a minimum wage sweatshop kind of thing. This is all before all the jobs went off to, you know, China and other places. And so they said, sorry, you know, we can't afford anything. You can't go to college or anything. So, like a lot of Hispanics, the way out was to join the military. And I went to join, and I had the pen in my hand and realized that I was kind of late to get home. And so I rushed out. I told the recruiter, I said, I just turned 18 like a few days before. And I told the recruiter, look, I'll come back. Because, you know, recruiters, they're smart. I used to love playing chess a lot. And so he would play me at chess and invite me to have chess games. And it was basically trying to sell me to join the Air Force. Nothing against the armed forces, but a lot of minorities see it as a way out, you know, from economic hardship. And of course, they'll promise you heaven and earth there. And so my mom said, we had gotten food stamps, and it was the most embarrassing and most degrading thing for my parents ever. I had never seen my parents cry except that time. And so I got home, and my mom says, I want you to go buy some milk, and she gave me some food stamps. And I said, no, Mom, give me real money and I'll be glad to go, but I'm embarrassed to pay with that kind of money, with fake money as we call it. And you know, I told my brother, you go, and we're all going, no, nobody wanted to go. And then my mom says, I'll go. And I knew this was very hard for her because, you know, I knew she felt like she was a failure as a provider for the family. So I said, look, Mom, I'll go, that's fine. And so I went to Cumberland Farms. That's the equivalent of a 7-Eleven in New England. And so since I was embarrassed, the high school had given me a jacket because I was chess champion, and so I was really proud of my jacket. I had that with me. And I waited to be at the end of the line so no one would see me. And then this guy comes in, and I'm like, so I told the guy, hey, just go. And he's like, no. And he stood behind me. And he said, so you go to Central Falls High School, huh? Okay. And what year are you? And I started asking questions. And he says, well, so are you applying to, how are you doing, how are your grades? I said, oh, I'm second best. I was very proud. I'm second best in my high school. considering, I was an immigrant, that was pretty good. And he said, well, so are you applying to university? I said, oh yes, I applied to 7 and I got accepted to all of them but one, Penn State. They didn't put me on a waiting list. He said, okay, but I told him, I said, I'm joining the Air Force because I can't afford it. My parents can't afford it. He says, what? Did you ask for financial aid? I said, no. He says, well, where's your guidance counselor? I said, well, he had a heart attack at the beginning of the year and they never replaced him. So he says, oh my God. He pulled me from the line and he started saying, look, you need to ask for the National Direct Student Loan, for work study, for the Guaranteed Student Loan, for the Pell Grant, for this, for that. Here, how much is the school? $12,000 at that time, which is about my mom's salary for the year. And he added it all up and he says, here, write him a letter and, don't join the Air Force, write him a letter and see what they say. So I went and I had a manual typewriter that I bought in the flea market and typed the letter, sent it to them. And with about 3 days, they sent, George Washington University sent me a letter saying, we'll see you here in September. And so, well, that made a whole difference. I went to GWU, and I had this view of myself that I thought I was pretty good, and I found out how lousy really my school was when I got to GWU. But I made it. And there, after George Washington, so this is a major inflection point. This guy, it's an accident. This guy's behind me. He talked to me. I decided to talk to a stranger, followed his advice. I mean, the guy turned out to be a guidance counselor for another high school. So he knew all of this because of that. And, at the time when I was religious, I thought God put him in there for me. But I met, so I went to GW, got a great job. I met an atheist girl, but I didn't believe she was atheist. I thought she was faking it. And you know how I came about it is I asked her, I said, if you have a child and your child is dying, wouldn't you go and pray for him? And she said, I would do anything for that child, including praying, including magic, including witch doctors, whatever I thought would save his life and wouldn't harm him even further, I would do. And so I always took that as, yeah, she believes. But when I asked her, why are you an atheist? She says, because it's all bullshit. And that was the best explanation she could give, and so she's not very convincing when you tell that to a religious person. So I kept using Juan, and Juan this and Juan that. And at work, I started noticing that some people, when I told them my name was David, I got different treatment than when I told them my name is Juan. And so I decided to do actually an experiment, and half the people at me to tell them I'm David, and my name was actually Juan David Tamayo. So middle name was David already. So it wasn't like, and my mom already called me David anyway. So after realizing that was the case, that I was getting different treatment, and it was not a better treatment, by the way, for the Juan, I said, well, I got to take care of number Juan, and change it to David so I can have more opportunities. And I did, actually. After I changed my name, I continued progressing at work, which is really not a good thing but that's a different topic to talk about. So, but I was still, a diehard Catholic. So, click, who turned the lights on? What happened? Well, I joined the Freemasons, and there are two types, just real quick, there are two types of Freemasonry. There's a dogmatic and an adogmatic type of Freemasonry, although the majority of Mason lodges and things like that you see around are the dogmatic kind. By the way, my favorite Mason in the world is Benjamin Franklin from this state. But who was a deist and a Freemason, Grand Master of Freemason. So when I went to join, I went online, internet was just coming on, and I asked a priest, can I, what does the Catholic Church say, can I join the Freemasons? And he says, oh, of course not. No. And I said, well, why not? He says, well, because the Catholic Church says no. So no, you know, if you want, you can join the Knights of Columbus, but do not join. I said, but I don't like this paternalistic do it because I say so. So tell me, why can't I become a Freemason? And he said, well, they have blood oaths and they do all kinds of things that are against the church. And basically what they do is they keep secrets from the church, and the church doesn't like that. So I rebelled for the first time, and I told the priest, I said, look, you're not giving me a good explanation. You're not a Mason. You have never been a Mason, so you really don't know what goes on in there. So you know what? I'm going to join, and if it's against the religion, or if it's against morality in any way, I'll just go out the same door I came in, and no problem. And the priest, I think I still have that email. He sent me an email saying, if I ever find out who you are, I will have you excommunicated. Yeah, I wanted to go back to that priest, except he got caught paying for his male lover's apartment with church funds, and he committed suicide. So, yeah. I could not. Yeah, God works in mysterious ways. So that was the start of questioning dogma a little bit. And then the second year, I used to read for the blind, so I discovered audiobooks, when they used to be called, books for the blind. And I was listening to, of course, Stephen Hawking, A Brief History of Time. And after the second time, it just kind of clicked that the whole universe was not created for me. That it didn't. My church has said that everything, animals, that's why we can be mean to animals. They're your property. They're just here to serve us. And the whole universe is here to serve us. So when he talked about the stars that are so far away, that it takes 30 billion years for the light to get here. And I was pretty good in science. I knew that it was 300,000 kilometers per second for light to travel, 180,000 miles. That was pretty far. And worse, that even if we were to travel with a ship at the speed of light to get to those places, we would never get there. Number one, because they probably didn't exist anymore. Number two, because it's an expanding, accelerating universe. So we'll never get there. And I thought, why would God do that? That would be like God just going, nah, I did something that wasn't for you. And that little stupid little thing started nagging at me. And I decided that, maybe the Catholic religion was wrong, and that the right religion was there. And I said, well, I need to take a step back. I need to make believe I'm an alien coming to Earth. How am I going to pick the right religion? By the numbers, well, you got 1 billion Muslims, you got 1 billion Hindus, you got 1 billion Christians, and 1 billion others, and who knows. So I decided to start looking at the different religions, the different things, and realized that, that my wife was right, they were all bullshit. So after I became an atheist, I thought, okay, good. Everything seems so clear and logical now. Now, it used to be that things didn't make sense, and I had to just kind of put them out of my mind because that's a different magisteria. God doesn't like to be questioned, doesn't like to be tested. Don't do it, because if you do it, he's going to fail because he doesn't like being tested. So, according to my mom. And so I decided to join some of the local groups in the Washington, D.C. area. And they were very good. The Beltway Atheists had 800 members. It was wonderful. They had picnics and activities and all kinds of things. And people were friendly and smart. They were all wicked smart. So it was really good. And I noticed there were very few Latinos, if any. And I thought, well, what's wrong with the Latinos? Why, minorities in general, we know that. I have to admit that the Beltway atheists and the atheists in the Washington, D.C. area tend to be a fairly young group of people, or old people that dress pretty good and say look pretty young. So I decided to test, since I'm into hypothesis testing now, well, let me see, I set up a meeting, a meetup, I figure $17 a month, I can afford that, and did the first meetup, and we had one person show up. And then after that, we had 5. And after that, we had about 12. And I'll be about 5 minutes. And we had a day laborer, a person that came in, and he was in his work clothes, and he sat in a corner. And when we went around talking about patting ourselves in the back, you know, why we're atheists and so on, got to this guy, and he said, you know, I never believed, I barely know how to even write, but I never believed in this, and I always thought I was crazy. And he started crying. He said, I'm just so touched to see people smarter than me and people that know better, and I feel such kinship with all of you that I really want to thank you all for seeing here. I found this accidentally online, and oh, this is great. And he could barely talk. At that moment, I decided we needed a group for the Latinos because there was none in the whole country. So we formed Hispanic American Freethinkers, and since then we've had I've had at least 10 people in the same boat. They come, they hug me, they crying. Oh, they're in San Diego recently. There was a woman there saying, I told my family I was going somewhere else to visit an aunt who doesn't have who's hard of hearing and doesn't answer the phone, so I came here instead. I had people call and said, my sister has a daughter that has stage 3 cancer, and you know, I don't know, they're telling me that I hate her because I don't want to pray. What do I do? And giving advice to people and so forth. We have a school program where we go to local high schools and we talk, it's free thinking. So we talk about not just we don't address the religion too much, but really tell kids, question everything, because the truth is not afraid to be questioned. So just question everything. We dress like a doctor and have them, you know, think that we're doctors, and then show them, you see, you can't make assumptions by just looking at people. This is my last slide. So what? Okay, so what? Big deal, right? The whole point is that through a series of single points of failure and events, lives get changed. My life got changed in a severe way. I mean, I can't even understand where I would be, or a little bit I can. I had a best friend when I was 10 years old in South America, and I look at his life and I look at my life, and they're totally opposite poles. He's in prison by now. You know, this is a great saying, something as small as the flutter of a butterfly's wing can ultimately cause a typhoon halfway around the world. That's chaos theory for some of you. Some of you may look at that and may seem that that's anybody recognize what that is? How many recognize it? All right. It's how a knight moves in a chessboard. It looks a little erratic, but it's actually a small exercise that people do to touch every square in there with a knight's move. But that's the whole thing, that, you know, it may look erratic, but there is to that. So what I ask you to do today is to create those inflection points, those lucky points, whatever you want to call them, for others. I think we're very, very, very lucky to have been exposed, or of being smart enough, or to be conscious enough, to be humanists, to be secular humanists, to be atheists, free thinkers, etc. And the way we do it is we need to initiate the conversation with others, with children, especially young people. Teenagers are great. They want to question anyway. They want to be rebels. They're primed for that. And you know, so the Juan and Emilian started very religious, almost being a priest. And now I feel that I get to do payback. I have to let the others see the light of this. And well, that's basically it. We need to, education is the biggest point of inflection we can give anyone, and I encourage all of you. And last, a plug, in 2015, we're going to have a Hispanic American Freethinkers conference in DC. It is not a conference from Hispanics for Hispanics, not at all. Remember, it's the population of the United States. It's from everyone to everyone on the Hispanic topic in any way, shape, or form. And Margaret already has agreed, and others have agreed that are going to be there. And we have some of the big organizers, big groups that are helping us put this together, because it's an important topic. We cannot ignore, I mean, look at Romney. He ignored the Hispanics, and look what happened to him. So we cannot ignore the Latinos, and I ask you all to help in that respect. Thank you very much.